So here's the unpleasant reality that somebody has to talk about this stuff. That's what I like about this program and this format, because we can talk about things that nobody else is talking about. But in Real America's Voice, we have a Real America conversation. And what I want to say is, when you compare the disastrous management of California and the disastrous management of New York, the collapsing revenues, they got a recall going on with Newsom over there in California. I keep hearing it's only 100,000 votes away. I'm wondering if it's like flattening the curve, if they keep on moving up the number. They get like 1.5 million, I think they have to come up with signatures to put it subject to a recall election. You got the governor of New York, who's under tremendous fire because of, it looks like he's fudging the numbers on how badly he managed the COVID situation with the nursing homes and decision-making. Those two states are the leading, oh boy, they're the top, liberal, progressive states of the United States, and they're in debt, and they're having a terrible time handling their own health issues. But Florida, on the other hand, with DeSantis, is a thorn in the flesh, because Ron DeSantis, it's amazing. This is like a territory. It's like a territorial spirit. You could almost see it. There really are differences. Texas and Florida, happy place. California, New York, distressing. And so people are moving, like the Texas and Florida. But what's really weird is now the Biden administration wants to start to punish Florida because it's having too much success, evidently, and it doesn't know its place, and it better get in line and work with the other states. I want you to see this quick exchange that's going on with Tucker Carlson and Senator Marco Rubio about the state of affairs in Florida.
Senator, I have to say, this seems, given what's going on in California, I don't understand the scientific basis for a suggestion like this. It seems very obviously political punishment. How does it strike you?
It's actually quite ironic. The day after Donald Trump imposed the China travel ban, Joe Biden accused him of xenophobia. Then in March, he tweeted out that travel bans against anywhere in the world do not work. But now he wants to impose them on American citizens. You know, tonight, if you arrive at the U.S. southern border with a child, you will be allowed entry to the country. You will be allowed to stay here pending an asylum trial that you may are hearing that you may never show up for. But if you're now an American citizen living in Florida that wants to travel, they're going to put some form of restriction in your way. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional. But we should also pass a law here making clear that this is not within the power of an administration to do, that you can't just stand in the way of the ability of Americans to travel freely in their country for something that, by the way, is not supported by the science.
It seems like, A, a pretty radical thing to say, B, the kind of thing you might say if you wanted to stoke real conflict, make people really paranoid, make them feel like they're really under attack. Shutting off states from the rest of the country? I mean, why would they even float an idea like that?
Because I think they're trying to punish Florida. I think they're embarrassed by what Florida's done. Florida's embarrassed California. Florida's embarrassed New York. It hosted a Super Bowl with actual people in the stands. You know, the predictions about Florida didn't come true. And they're like, we can't let this stand. We've got to come up with something. I honestly think there's an element of that involves punishment. I really do.
So if you mismanage a state so completely that everyone with a job flees, should you get an Emmy, but should you be allowed to force the rest of the country to bail you out? That's what they're going to try and do.
Yeah, and again, those are pre-existing debts. We should not be in the business of saying, well, you were already in trouble to begin with. This is a good opportunity to get you a bunch of money so you can help fund all the mismanagement, all the terrible union contracts you have, all the mess you've made of your cities or your state. That's exactly what they're looking for. This is not about helping a city that needs help. That's one thing. This is let me say, their tax base was wiped out by the pandemic. This is about pre-existing debt in the billions of dollars, pension plans that are bankrupting states and cities and counties across the country, and now they view the pandemic as the latest opportunity to get bailed out.
You guys understand all those windows that they open there. It's so important that we get this. California and New York have so badly managed their fiscal affairs that they, before the pandemic, were in a crisis regarding how they're going to pay for their state's debt. And they wanted to hit the Trump administration. They saw the Trump administration wasn't going to be a sympathetic, let's bail out your bad management, federal government president. Do you understand now why it was that so many of the union forces and so many of the conspiracy of elites were desperate? Why they had the shutdown? Now you got to look at the shutdown in states and the draconian way in which small businesses have been punished And you start to see that there's always been this expectation that if they can raise the misery index in America to a sufficient threshold, including the summer of riots, that people will say, ugh, get rid of Trump, let's go to something else, anything other than Trump. And they could go hit the federal government for bailouts, which is exactly what Rubio is talking about there. But forget that for a moment. They're punishing Florida, and they're trying to get the hypocrisy and the insanity. Biden is approving 25,000 foreigners that are not American citizens to cross over into the United States. There's no testing for COVID as of today's broadcast that is going to be given to them. So they're coming 25,000 into the United States. They were on the border, but now he's relaxing all of Trump's bans. So boom, here we start the caravans rolling in. We've changed the policy with Guatemala, with Mexico. Everything we had that was slowing it down is now open doors. They're going to hold a restriction on American citizens in Florida because of COVID, but they're not going to close the back door in the United States. And as of today, they're not testing for COVID. Can you imagine anything more blatantly in your face? It's just picking the outrage of the week is almost impossible.
They're all outrageous. There's nothing like trying to cancel an entire state and saying, no, not today, Florida. And I think he's right. I think that they are being punished in a lot of ways. And I think that Florida has put to shame many of these states that have been closed, have put small businesses out of work, and have forced people really, I mean, there's so many people actually in California that are moving even more into tents and homelessness as a result of Governor Newsom's policies, which, by the way, I just looked up. They are at 1.5 million signatures, so there will be a recall for Newsom. And the legislator, like you talked about in New York, also just is trying to recall Governor Cuomo as well. So,
wow,
exciting time.
This is big news. And by the way, people want to know, they want to have hope. I want to have hope. You want to have hope. Let's just stop right now and celebrate that there is a backlash. Eventually, the American people take in this information and they look at the reality of the situation. And in spite of the bombardment and mind control of media and technology, they come to the conclusion these things are pretty sucky. We have to deal with them. And they're saying that now in New York. They're saying that now in California. One can only surmise that by 2022, there will be a national tsunami of discontented, enlightened Americans saying, where the heck are we? And let's get rid of this nonsense. Now, are we going to be able to go into the segments that I want to go into right now?
Yeah, I do want to just say, because I know people have talked briefly about it, but the other, I think, kind of ray of hope we have happening, ironically, is that because the impeachment is now going to drag on into weeks, as we call witnesses, I think we have a real opportunity to present our own side of the case here. And so that is something else to look forward to. It's almost like we're tottering right now between two different realities. And we've got our own wins, the Democrats have wins, and we're just going back and forth. And it's almost like which America is going to emerge. And so I know what you want to pull into. You've been teasing it out the whole segment. And so I think we could throw into it. And I'll just say this. Also trying to be canceled this week, the Star-Spangled Banner. Insane. Back to you, Lance. I'll let you run with it.
Do you get this? So let's bring this up. Forbes magazine is discussing this. Mark Cuban has always wanted to be the Donald Trump of the American populist movement. And like I said a moment ago, he's a total miscast. He's an absolute, he's a disaster. He cannot compete with Trump at all. His instincts are flat-footed. He kind of caves in the wrong places. In Texas, of all places, the Dallas home of, the Texas flag. When I moved to Texas, they said that you have to have the Texas flag is on the same height as the American flag, because it was one of the rules they made when Texas joined the Union, that it was going to be joining it almost as an independent nation, becoming part of the United States. And they're always very proud of that. And I'll tell you, I lived in Rhode Island, I lived in Pennsylvania, and at no time did anybody ever give us a discussion of the flags of our state. It's a very patriotic state. So this is a total tone-deaf movement, again, by Mark Cuban, who's trying to be so woke and so cool and so progressive, but doesn't understand. He's in the sports profession, and this is largely a middle-class dare I say, middle class, blue collar, sports profession. These are the people that are going into the Army. This is the people that are the working Americans. And these are people that actually don't have a problem with the national anthem. And so he didn't know that. He wanted to cancel it, and he wanted to remove it. But evidently that whole thing backfired on him in a big way. I didn't realize till Mercedes told me, though, that even the NBA, the National Basketball Association, had to actually set him straight because he was missing. He didn't even follow the cue in his own in their own progressive athletic division.
Yeah, I'm calling this the Cuban anthem crisis. A little bit of a wordplay on the Cuban Missile Crisis, but Cuban anthem crisis. And yeah, basically at all the Mavericks games, he said, well, we're not going to play the anthem anymore, to which everyone responded, what? And so what's basically had to happen is the NBA put out a statement following this saying that it's a time-honored tradition. We will be playing the anthem at all NBA games. And, you know, you sit, stand, kneel, crisscross applesauce. I don't care what you do, but let's at least play the anthem. I know America's not perfect, which, you know, professional circle back girl Jen Psaki said that, you know, basically America hasn't been perfect, and that's what Cuban is trying to make the point here. And I know it's not perfect, but dang it, it's the best that we've got, and it's the best it's ever been. So if we can't celebrate that and play the anthem, what are we doing? All right, well, Lance, back to you.
Yeah, you know, I'm telling you something. It's the burning of the flag, the burning of the Bible. It's about burning of America's symbols of the sacred. We'll be back in a minute because this is a powerful end we have for today's broadcast.